What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'm going to talk about some breakout players who I expected to do well in the 2021-2022 season. I did this video back in August, maybe July, talking about who I thought would have a really good season, who really hadn't been that on the radar before. They hadn't had a real competitive cap for the U.S. national team, or they just weren't really on the radar or we knew they were really good. So I want to talk about how some of these players did. I'm only going to talk about the European players for now. I talked about MLS players. I guess I'll talk about them I guess it would have to be October, November, when the MLS season winds down. But for now, let's talk about the European players who I expect to do well and see how they did. So starting off, I had a couple players who I really expected to do well, then I'll go by position. So the first guy was probably the most expected guy to break out before the season started, and that was Conrad De La Fuente. And I think he did well in his first year of action, and he earned himself a USA call-up, and he was playing pretty well, but I think he was only, as good as we expected it to be. He came on after this is his first year of competitive action, and I feel like it looked like that. He was still clearly a talented player, get a lot of good moments for Marseille, but he has a lot of room for improvement, and I think he will improve, and he will continue to get better, but I think I wouldn't really call it a breakout year. I think it was just very solid and continued to do well. Next guy, Joe Scally. This is a little bit cheating because I feel like the Bundesliga had started before I made this video, and I feel like he did do well. He just kept his place in the team for a very long time. He was still getting a lot of minutes as the year progressed, and I have to say, he probably did break out this year. He earned himself a couple of national team call-ups, will probably get his first cap in the Nation League, and might even work his way into the World Cup spot because I feel like that's definitely possible for him. He's looking really good, and he definitely did break out and had a great season. Next, Owen Otasowie. That's a name I have not heard in a while, and I gotta say, up there for my worst take of the year is, hey, Owen Otasowie, he had an option to play at Wolves. He had an option to get Premier League action, Premier League minutes, but he decided to go to Belgium for playing time. That's a really mature decision. I think he's a really mature kid, and he's going to be great. Jesus, was that a terrible take. I mean, at the time, I'll justify that decision, but man, at first I thought it was he just was having trouble moving, trouble adjusting to a new place, but it seems like he doesn't even want to play soccer anymore. I think he's becoming a model or something, which, I don't know, good for him, I guess, but man, that's disappointing because he's talented. He honestly could have been in this team. You can't tell me that he could not have taken Georgi Milhalovic's spot or something on this current roster, so really disappointing from Owen Otasowie, but I honestly don't think he plays again, so I can't even say, maybe you'll get him next year. I don't think he will. Next, Cameron Carter-Vickers. That was a great decision. I feel like that's a bit tough to say because he's been killing in the championship for the last 2 years before the season, but man, he moved to Scotland and he was arguably the best player in the entire Scottish Premier League and definitely the best defender. Great season for him. We have to see if he ends up staying in Scotland. Maybe he'll end up in a different Premier League team. Maybe Tottenham will even end up playing him. He has a chance to impress Antonio Conte. They play with 3 center backs. It's not out of the question. I don't think it's likely, but hopefully either he'll play with Celtic, get Champions League action next year, or maybe he'll go to a Premier League team, get some Premier League action. Either way, looking really good. Earn himself a U.S. men's national team call-up, and things are looking really good for Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's definitely somebody who broke out completely. Next guys to talk about, and I want to say, I want to have one of every single position, so a couple of these guys, not too great. CJ Dos Santos, he's going back to the MLS. He's playing with Inter Miami now. He's the backup as their top goalkeeper's out for a while, but he's still backing up Drake Callender. That's a bit disappointing. And Chituru Odunze, he's made some slight progression at Leicester, but not anything special. Maybe next year you can he's not going to get any more time, but maybe keep growing, maybe really solidify that U23 goalkeeper's job for himself. Next, at center back, Erik Palmer-Brown, another hit. He ended up finding his form for Troyes, even winning Player of the Month, got back in the national team, could find himself starting for the national team. Great season for Erik Palmer-Brown. He's somebody, man, you can see the talent the whole time. He ended up getting stuck in a loan army. We saw that with Matt Miazga. Thankfully, he managed to get out. I think he's going to be staying at Troyes long term. And again, not the best club, but just getting consistent action, consistent playing time. It's great to see. A lot of guys, just get out of that loan system. It works out for nobody. 1 out of 10 players. Just get out of it, get consistent time, and Erik Palmer-Brown looks like he's going to be pretty good for Troyes. Next, Matthew Olosunde, and he suffered through injuries all year. That was the only right back I could think of. Didn't have a great season for Preston. I was hoping that with a new team he could play well, but didn't end up doing it. And, like, I'm just looking back at this list. Did I forget about Brian Reynolds? Because, like, he should have qualified. I should have mentioned Brian Reynolds. Like, he still didn't have a great season, ended up falling out with Mourinho, going out on loan, but I think he's still a talented player. I like him, but did I forget about Brian Reynolds? Because that's kind of bad on me. Now, left back, we didn't have many left backs to talk about. I ended up going with Kobe Hernandez-Foster, who I still think is a very talented young player. I'll probably include him again next year for no other reason than we don't have left-footed players, really. But he's playing for HamKam now in Norway, which not the highest level through any means. But Haji Wright ended up going from Scandinavia to Turkey, so maybe Kobe Hernandez-Foster can do something kind of similar, but again, a little bit disappointing, but he's still a talented player. He's only a 2002, so he still has a lot of time. Next, going to defensive mid, we had Tanner Tessman and Chris Durkin. Durkin's going back to the MLS, where he's doing somewhat well at DC United, though that's kind of unfortunate because he's taking Moses Nyman's spot. I think he's out with an injury anyway, though. But Tanner Tessman, good, but didn't do anything special for Venezia. Didn't really get it off the bench consistently. Couldn't nail down a starting role. I'm hoping that he stays with them when they go down to Serie B, and hopefully he can impress there, because I still think he's a good player. I'm still hoping that maybe he can end up finding himself on the World Cup roster, because I don't trust Kelman Acosta at all, but looks like didn't really end up working out for him, and yeah. I still think he's going to do well at Venezia, but this year didn't really break out. Next, we got attacking mids, 8 and 10s. Richie Ledezma, looking good back from his injury. I'd say he's basically in the same spot he was pre-injury, which is good. Definitely didn't break out, but you're coming back from a really bad injury. You can't expect to. But I think it's really good that he's back at his pre-injury form, and he's looking like a dual national battle, which I guess that shows his quality, and I really want to back the team because I think he's good. Next, Luca De La Tour. Definitely a breakout player. Played pretty well. Definitely broke out for the U.S. men's national team. Will probably move on from Heracles because they're almost guaranteed to get relegated now. So hopefully he'll move on, maybe find himself at a higher level, and maybe move to Ajax, PSV, get some European action, or move to a different club in like maybe Germany, go to the Bundesliga. Like I feel like he'd do pretty well in Serie A, but we're really looking forward to seeing what Luca De La Tour could do. He definitely broke out. He showed his quality. Like I feel like when he played in that friendly, we all knew he was a good player, but the manager, the U.S. media, they finally figured out that he was good. And next, Taylor Booth. Next year, he's probably going to break out with Utrecht, but this year he's just in Bayern Munich B team. He's in a similar situation that Konrad was last year. Hoping next year's the year for him. And also, Ulysses Llanez. Decent season in Austria. Kind of similar to Erik Palmer-Brown's route, where, decent season, and maybe this can lead to him moving to a Big 5 league and performing well there, but not really anything special in Austria. I really wish I would have included Alex Mendez instead, because he's looking really good. And lastly, we're going to striker, where I just decided to throw on 3 strikers because I figured one of them would break out. First, we've got Sebastian Soto, swing and a miss. Didn't end up playing at Porto at all, was in their B team for a bit, ended up going to Scotland on loan, where he really didn't impress at all. Christian Ramirez was by far the better player for American strikers in Scotland, and he just needs some stability because he's still on loan in Norwich. I think he has his work permit now. He's playing in Scotland, so he's obviously able to play in the United Kingdom. So hopefully he'll end up doing a bit better in the championship next season. It's going to be tough to take Pookie's spot or Josh Sargent. Maybe go out on loan again. I don't know, but not the greatest season by Sebastian Soto. Next, Charlie Kelman. Swing and a miss for strike 2. He's still progressing, but really not great. At this point, he's kind of looking like Lyndon Gooch, where he's not progressing up the English pyramid. We saw Cameron Carter-Vickers. He really did progress up the pyramid, and he did to improve. Charlie Kelman, it's not looking like that right now. He's still young. He still could end up impressing, but he needs to improve a bit more. And lastly, with 2 strikes, my last striker I chose, Haji Wright. I think that's a home run. Breakout season in Turkey for sure, and himself a call-up to the national team. Man, a ton of goals, and this run in particular that he's been on, but what is it, last 9 games, 9 goals, 3 assists, I think. He's been killing it. Definitely under this call-up to the national team, and might even end up being the starter for the World Cup at this rate, because he's been looking really good. So yeah, that's all I want to talk about for the European players. Wish I'd included Brian Reynolds. I must have just forgotten about him. Alex Mendez, would have liked to include him, but we got some really good players in Joe Scally, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Erik Palmer-Brown, Luca De La Tour, Haji Wright. All 5 of them really impressed. And I'm looking forward to some guys next year. Charlie Kelman, Sebastian Soto, maybe they can do better in the championship. Ulysses Llanez, hoping he can do well. Taylor Booth, in his first season of real first-team action, he'll probably look good. Richie Ledezma getting back from injury. Tanner Tessman going down a level. Kobe Hernandez-Foster, maybe he can show his talent. Brian Reynolds and Conrad De La Fuente, another year at Marseille. If he ends up staying there, could all be really good. But yeah, some really talented players here. Like I said, I'm really excited about these guys, especially the 5 I mentioned. Joe Scally, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Erik Palmer-Brown, Luca De La Tour, Haji Wright, all getting called to the national team. I'd say I predicted this pretty well. A lot of really good players, a lot of talent in the squad. I'll get to the MLS one a bit later, but yeah, some really talented players in Europe. Excited to watch all of them play. That's all I'll talk about right now. See ya.